Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hard Hat Highlights, where Jay and I kind of do a little review of what we've done as far as work or things that stuck out in our work week over the last week. And then we get into some of the eye-catching / trending headlines and topics through social media. And that's what we like to do. So welcome back, sir.
Good to see you.
This week, we've implemented a new CRM.
That's right.
Into My Architectural Glass. And why did we choose to do that now?
Well, I think it's time as you continue to grow, it becomes more and more important to make sure that you're following up with all your customers and providing the best customer service. The last thing you want to do is send out a bid and just sit on it and wait for them to get back to you, because then it seems like you don't care.
I agree with that, and follow-up is extremely important. That's a whole nother separate conversation. However, I think we elected to do that now, not only because we need it, but let's face it, times are a little bit slower than they were a year ago.
Yes.
The market seems a little bit timid anyway here in Southwest Florida, to say the least.
It's an election year.
It's an election year. However, some people will start to get real small and start chasing around pennies, where we use that as a time to reinvest in the business. So putting that new CRM in place.
Spell it.
CRM. I think it's going to help you and I a lot, because as we're growing and adding more people here, it's very important that people have the information with all the touches that we're having with these people.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we're not getting any younger. I know we look it, and I know we get a lot of comments alluding to that, but Father Times, you're getting a little long in the tooth.
Dude, I had a weird compliment this week.
Oh?
I had a longtime customer of ours, and I pulled in the driveway and got up to the door, and she says, "I didn't recognize you. I thought John Travolta was in my driveway."
Oh, man.
I said that may be, but I don't have a plane or a masseuse.
Yeah, or sacrifice your child. Anyway, let's get into some of the headlines. The Olympics. You mentioned something about the Olympics.
So there's a new sport in the Olympics this year.
Do tell.
Do you know?
I have no idea.
Something that maybe back in the 80s, you probably partook in, I'm sure.
Keg stands?
I think we all did. That would be a good sport. No, it's actually, they call it breaking, a.k.a. breakdancing.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they just implemented it. The Olympics are starting opening ceremonies tomorrow night.
Opening ceremonies tomorrow night, and the newest addition to the Olympics, and it's called breaking, and it's breakdancing.
Breakdancing.
Choreographed. Is it just teams or single individuals, synchronized?
I'm not quite sure. I believe it's individuals. They're referring to them as B-boys and B-girls. But they use some sort of, they call it trivium scoring, where they have multiple aspects of scoring that they look at to determine their
difficulty.
Overall. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
I
Are you looking forward to that?
I don't know that I'm necessarily going to watch it. I might, tune in for a minute just to see what it's like. But
yeah, maybe.
I'm not going to be glued to my TV.
Okay. What about? Go ahead.
On that subject, though, there's a lot of sports in the Olympics, and I find it interesting that they've added breakdancing when there's still some of the most popular sports in the world are not part of the Olympics. American football, auto racing, those are two of the most popular sports in the entire world that aren't even in the Olympics, but we have breakdancing.
How does a new sport even get into Olympics? I mean, I'm sure there's a committee, and
I got to imagine it's probably a whole sum of processes where maybe they petition and it moves to a next step.
And there was a big enough movement to get breakdancing ahead of, let's say, American football, or like you said, car racing.
I believe
that's wild.
I believe that's still pretty big in Europe.
Breakdancing?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do some different things.
I can cut the rug.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
Not right now. Not right now.
But talking about those sports, what do you think out of all the sports in there is the hardest one?
Out of all the Summer Olympic sports?
Yeah.
Man. I tell you, the pole vaulting one, I always get glued to watching that. That's just, to me, That one is very intriguing. I don't know all the sports off the top of my head, so I might be overlooking the obvious.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty tough sport.
Pole vaulting?
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid of heights. Now, I'm not saying it's really high, but for people who are afraid of heights, I think it is. And knowing that you're doing that on a stick.
Well, not only that, you need the strength and stamina to get up there.
Yeah.
Because you're starting in a full sprint, so you need the stamina, and then you need the strength to hold on and get yourself up over the.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think the toughest sport is fencing.
Oh.
Because you got a lot of weird kind of self-defense, kind of medieval type of moves.
Yeah.
And really, the toughest part of it, of all, is that they have to grow up being a total fucking nerd their entire lives while they're trying to get to the Olympics.
Yeah. Where does one even practice fencing?
I would not know. I mean,
I feel like that's an Ivy League school thing.
I feel like it's a thing you do when you're running around a park with a stick as a kid, and that's about it. It's interesting.
It sounds like you're not a big fan of the sport.
You know what? I can't say that because I don't know enough about it. You just know here in America, it doesn't seem to be extremely popular.
Yeah. Soccer. I know soccer is a sport.
Kickball.
Within the Olympics, it's pretty big. Happens to be the most popular sport in the world. But recently, there was the tournament, and they had a game over in Miami, the Copa
America.
Copa America. And I don't know if you saw, but that's held, I believe, at Dolphin Stadium.
Hard Rock Stadium.
Hard
yes.
Rock, where the Dolphins play.
Mm-hmm.
And people were breaking, I think it was when Messi was playing, people were literally breached the security around the ticket center.
That's right.
Past all the security guards, and there was even some video of some of these security guards tuning up some of these people. But there was way too many. Sure. There was way too many to even keep up. Matter of fact, there was a couple instances where I think they shattered all the glass on the escalators.
In the suites. They destroyed the suites.
I saw people trying to climb up in the air ducts and somehow wiggle their way out towards the field just to get a glimpse of this. I can't believe people are willing to put themselves in that position.
This is how rabid these fans are. This is, to step it back, this is Argentina versus Colombia. And apparently the tickets for this were going for thousands of dollars a piece.
You're kidding me.
For a single, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I can't stand watching soccer. It's like watching the grass grow. Mm-hmm. And people are spending thousands of dollars and then trying to break in on top of it.
I can't wrap my head around it, that they're willing to take that risk just to go. And it's not like you're taking that risk not to go sit in a prime seat and watch the whole game. You might only get in for 10 seconds and then get arrested, or you're crawling through the air ducts to get in there. But let's not forget, fan stands for fanatic.
Yep.
And some people literally go crazy. I remember back in the day, you watch any of like the live shows with Michael Jackson in concert over in some of these foreign countries. People were passing out in the crowd because they were just so overwhelmed with excitement. You can't logically think.
Yeah, they place a lot of these people on such a pedestal. They're like, they've become gods.
I've never been an autograph guy either. I can't find myself to go up to someone else and ask for an autograph. Now, I will say, I'd love to get a selfie photo. I think like that's the evolution of the autograph. If you said, would you rather an autograph or a picture with the person? I'd take the picture all day long.
Well, it's more personal.
Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, his signature on there, like, who gives a shit?
Right.
That's not my thing.
Well, you can buy that now.
Yes.
You can't buy the personal
photo.
Interaction.
Yeah. But I found that interesting that people were willing to take the chance of getting arrested, beat up, injured to go see that soccer game. I mean, that's quite the draw.
I'm curious. Obviously, there was a lot of damage done. There's a lot of revenue lost because of this. But I'm curious if Hard Rock Stadium is saying, okay, well, we still made money. Maybe we're going to do this again. Or if they just lost their shirts.
And also, what happens from an insurance standpoint? Because I'm sure they're going to put in for insurance. Insurance is going to deem it even more. I mean, have you walked out?
What type of coverage is that? Is like animal coverage? I mean, what?
Well, and think about it. It's not like there's not any protective mechanisms when you go to these football games. When I walk out of it, a lot of times I'm like, wow, this feels like a lot like prison. Like you go through metal detectors, 2 gates of securities. I get patted down. Then I'm going up the turnstile, which is all concrete and chain link fence. It's not sexy until you get actually in the stadium. I mean, so there's a lot of mechanisms to kind of protect the institution, if you will. And so I think this is only going to make it for them to add to it and make it even stronger because their insurance rates are probably going to go up. So
you're probably going to see security heightened quite a bit, just kind of like what happened with the airlines after 9/11. It was, we used to be able to walk in, and if our family was coming in, we could go right to the gate and wait for them. Okay. And then everything just turned on its head.
Only because you mentioned airlines, I think we should segue into the Southwest Florida Airlines was recently.
Southwest Florida Airlines?
I mean, Southwest Airlines was recently in the news. And this business, Southwest Airlines, has been around for approximately 50 years.
Really?
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. I didn't think it was around that long.
No, I had no idea.
That was reported by the Associated Press. And for the first time ever, they're going to start issuing assigned seating, which I went on Southwest Airlines one time, and I vowed I would never go on that airline ever again, not because the actual flying of the plane and service once we were in the air was bad. That wasn't it at all. It was the level of anxiety I had in me because I don't get to the airport. I'm not one of these that gets to the airport 2.5 hours early. Especially in Southwest Florida. We have one of the best airports around here. I know I only have one carry-on. I know how long it's going to take me approximately to get through security to the gate. I'm 40-minute guy before boarding time. But with Southwest Airlines, if you're not standing in line, now you're like, oh shit, am I going to have a seat? Where am I going to sit? Is there going to be a spot to put my luggage above my seat? Am I going to be able to sit with the person I'm traveling with? And all these things are going on, and the potential fear's kicking in.
It's like being a little kid on the school bus, and you're worried about sitting next to your friends.
I hated it. Yeah. So I said, I will never fly Southwest Airlines. So it's enough people must have been thinking this way for them finally to get to the point where they want to start issuing seats.
Well, you got to figure, too, this is a quote-unquote bargain airline, so a lot of families are traveling on it, and that's got to be another added stressor when you're going on vacation. You're worried if your 6-year-old kid is going to end up sitting 3 rows behind you because you don't have anywhere to sit.
And you always got the people next to you that go, hey, I have my wife and kid, do you mind moving over to the seat? And they ask you like you should just immediately capitulate with that. And it's just such an uncomfortable situation. Like,
are you a yes I do mind?
I have been, because I quickly notified, like I was able to see what was there. And I'm like, I don't want to sit there. But now I know I've gonna fractured this relationship, so now this is going to be uncomfortable. So it's like, shame on the people for even asking you. Like, you knew what number seats you were when you get there, and you just figured you'd get on the plane and ask somebody to move, and they'd move.
Right.
So I have moved before for other people, but I have not moved before as well, which is extremely uncomfortable.
Either way,
you're a loser.
Yeah. So we were talking about sports a little earlier, and I think we've brought it up on here before. We do have an NIL agreement. For those of you that don't know, it's a name, image, and likeness agreement that they've allowed college athletes to partake in, where essentially we have an athlete, Pete Simmons, who plays for University of Michigan football.
PS3.
He's an ambassador to our company, and in return, we pay him for that.
Yep. Going on our 4th year.
That's something that has really taken off in the last few years in college football.
Oh, yeah.
The state of Florida has just approved NIL agreements for high school athletes.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So, I mean, fuck, when I was in high school, I would have loved to get paid, right? Who wouldn't? It just raises a lot of interesting questions, because the first part of it is, okay, how much money are these kids really getting in high school? Unless you're like, a generational talent, they're probably not making much, but they're making a decent amount, and they're not having to work for it. They're just doing what they're doing anyways. So does that create a culture of entitlement?
That's a good question. I'd like to actually unpack the statement you made right before that. I actually think in this day and age, if there's NIL agreements in high school, I actually don't even think you need to be a one-in-a-generation athlete to garner any money. Think about this. If, let's say, Barron Collier here in Naples is notorious for winning pretty much everything. We built a trophy case in there, and there's 24 trophy cases in that school. Let's say there's a senior this year that's a high prospect pitcher. But, maybe he goes to a college full boat. So it's not guaranteed. But he's got 2 million followers on his Instagram. I think companies would weight that, especially at that age, almost more than the talent. They're actually just trying to buy eyeballs more so than they are trying to get behind his so-called career and hope that he makes it to the big leagues, and then this kid remembers the first company that believed in him and pays him back.
That's fair.
I think if somebody's got a social media presence and can integrate that company into their, weekly or daily post, I think there would be a massive benefit. I mean, think about us. We do these things so we can clip it up and put it out on our social media platforms, and we'd love to get millions of eyeballs on every one of our views. Maybe someone would want to sponsor us.
You're right. I think I don't know what to think of this just yet because it's brand new. There's obviously good and bad to it. The other thing I see is how do we protect these kids from the unscrupulous people? Because don't forget, these kids are all minors.
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm going to turn the script on you. Your oldest daughter has a full-time job.
Yeah.
Now, let's assume that she had an Instagram page with, let's say, 10,000 followers. And she goes to her job where there's animals involved, and she starts just doing a daily post. Come with me while I pet these dogs. And all of a sudden, overnight, she blows up. Mm-hmm. And she comes home and says, Daddy, I want you to come and have a meeting with my boss because they want to offer to pay me $500,000 a year to continue doing these videos while I'm doing my job. Are you telling her no, she shouldn't do that?
No, not at all. Not at all. However,
I don't say that she's ready for $500,000 a year, but
no.
But she is going to work to make money. So now we're saying don't make too much money?
No, you're 100% correct there. And it falls on the parents. However, traditionally, a good portion of the elite athletes that would stand to make the most money may have one parent households, or the parents may not care. Those are the kids that we got to worry about and watch out for, because again, they fall into this sort of entitlement culture is where I see it.
I think it's very dangerous. There's a history of this. You can even see in the NBA. I believe it's like 75% of NBA players, once they retire, go bankrupt in like 2 or 3 years.
Look at Allen Iverson. Guy blew through all his money.
All of it. And he was
he's a Hall
top,
of Famer.
Yeah, top tier. Yeah, I don't know if my daughter came home and was given an opportunity to make a portion of money that was just way out further than I feel that she could be earning if she was really trying hard at that age. It would be a difficult thing to, because you're right. Once that bar is set, they're going to be expecting that forever. And it's like, man, as high as you feel right now, that can, the low is even worse.
Well, yeah, because you can look at things like child actors, right? They land some sitcom and they're hugely famous and they're making tons of money, and then all of a sudden the money's not there anymore.
Yeah, or the parents steal it.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things.
More money, more problems.
You're right. You're right. Speaking of money.
Yes.
I think you and I both have dealt with this throughout our lives in where we live, having to pay a homeowners association. Usually you get the HOA Karen that complains about everything, and You don't know where the hell your money's going.
Well, let's make sure we
However-
qualify what that is, because there's people all across the country, and I feel like this is predominantly a Florida thing, maybe more than a lot of other areas.
I think they have it in
Everywhere?
several areas of the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
The HOA, so down here in Florida, if you live in a gated community, there will be an HOA, homeowners association, that kind of governs the bylaws of that community. And if you were thinking about moving to Florida and you were going to go into a gated community, you should not only look at the price of the house and start figuring out what mortgage payments you can afford, but then you also ask, what's the HOA dues? Because some of these places, I mean, you're talking thousands per month. And it's not, it's because the amenities, the security, the groundkeeping, a lot of these, you see what some of them are, like Miramar Lakes. They have movie theaters, and to say resort-style pools is almost an insult. I mean, it's the nicest resort-style pool you've ever seen. Swim-up bars,
There's a
lakes.
gentleman who works at our glass factory who lives close by to me. And in his particular association, it's a 55 and over community. When you purchase the home, but you don't own the land beneath it. So you only own the home, and then their HOA fees are roughly $800 to $1,100 a month.
Oh. And that's because of all the amenities and infrastructure.
And they take care of your lawn and things like that. But I mean, think about that. That's almost a mortgage payment.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead.
So
that's
anyhow,
an HOA.
So to get back on track here, there's a community here in Sarasota called the Meadows, and they have a certain, like any HOA does, they have certain language in their bylaws. The state of Florida has just passed a law that you are allowed to park pickup trucks and company vehicles in your driveway, so long as they're not commercial vehicles. This HOA at this place called the Meadows in Sarasota, they are still not allowing people, if you like you and I both have pickup trucks, we could not park our truck in the driveway. There's an example they gave of one gentleman who has an F-250 and it has to park 0.8 miles away and pay to park in a fenced-in area, like a storage area, because his HOA will not allow him to park there. And you ask, how do they get by? How do they get around that? Because that is a law that you're allowed to be able to, as long as the local governing body allows you to park in your driveway, you can do so. The reason the HOA is allowed to get around it is because their particular bylaws do not have in it what's called Kaufman language. And so this goes back to a lawsuit. It was like Kaufman versus so-and-so.
Right.
And what that states is this Kaufman language, when it is in your bylaws, says that the bylaws can change when the municipal laws do. But because they do not have that in their bylaws, they're allowed to maintain what the laws were back in 1976 when they first wrote these.
And in some of these fucking communities, the people that have the power with the Bible, if you will, of rules, they enforce it.
They're looking to enforce it.
They can't wait to
Nothing
enforce it.
better to do. Yep.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. So I remember, because where I was at in Fountain Lakes, that was a thing for a little while. If you had a pickup truck, I think what they meant to do is prevent commercial vehicles from littering all the driveways, because they can't fit in the garage, and before you know it.
Which, again, commercial vehicles are not allowed under this.
Okay, but I see a lot of times,
law.
even some of these, if you get into these developments early in the morning, I see a commercial vehicle and they take if it's a white truck, they put a white magnet over it.
Yeah.
So where does that fall? Because the license plate is a commercial plate, so it's a commercial vehicle.
That's right. So it's still a commercial vehicle.
Doug and I got in trouble with that.
You could paint it pink. It's still a commercial vehicle.
That's what it was when we were in Fountain Lakes. You remember this?
I do.
We bought the limo, and we bought a limo so we wouldn't, drink and drive. We'd have somebody drive us around on the weekend. It was beautiful. It was brand new. It was like a 12-passenger Lincoln Continental, black. It was beautiful.
It was.
I could argue in the development that we were in, it was the nicest vehicle. It was perfect. Parked in the driveway. We got a citation for that because it was a commercial vehicle. And I said, no, that's for personal use. He says, no, it's got commercial plates, which you were right. You know, we had it registered through a business.
You had to register it as livery.
So that's, but if the language in there was Kaufman language.
Yeah, so meaning if they had that language from the Kaufman lawsuit saying that
So there's precedent.
when the laws
already
change,
Yeah.
these bylaws will change. They didn't have that, so therefore those bylaws stay as they were written in 1976.
See, words matter.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I don't have sympathy for anybody that's affected by that, because usually when you buy the house in there, you are given, you know, in your 30-day time frame of your due diligence, let's say for inspections, what have you, you should be requesting a copy of the HOA bylaws.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you got a good real estate agent, he would know that language. Like, this is, you know, the problem with that is those people are relying on that sale so they can get money. So I would say it's really on the owner to read those bylaws if you're buying in an HOA down here. Yep. Speaking of making clarifications,
yes,
I think we should clarify our tipping conversation that we had the other day, because, wow, there has been some
heat.
I've been getting some interesting direct messages. Like, so I want to make a clarification, but I know you do too. So why don't you go ahead and lay yours out first?
Well, I think what I'd like to say, a lot of what we were speaking about with the tipping and the automatic tipping on the tablets, that was not a knock on the hospitality employees whatsoever, because they deserve every penny they get and more.
For the ones that are doing their job or above.
Correct. What we were trying to explain and where we have an issue is, if I'm going to Chick-fil-A and I order something, I'm not having, which I don't anyways, by the way, but if I go to Chick-fil-A and order something, they don't ask you for a tip. Why is it if I take my daughter to Starbucks, they're forcing you to tip, essentially, you know, making you feel guilty? And I don't have a problem tipping if I know what the service is going to be like. But they're asking you to do this before you've gotten the service, which means that their performance is predicated on what you give them.
They're no longer an unbiased situation there. Now it's like, oh, you didn't give me a tip?
No, now it's not a tip, it's a bribe.
Exactly. And I like how you use the two businesses, because Chick-fil-A was founded on its customer service, and it's still obvious. I don't go there much, but if and when I did, whether you're at the drive-thru in there, the customer service is next level.
Yeah.
Like the way they talk to you. And you're not talking about seasoned business professionals. These are usually high schoolers. Whatever they're doing, coaching them up, I think they're doing a phenomenal job setting them on a certain path for success. And the kids might not even be aware of it. I don't necessarily think I get treated the same way at Starbucks. But tipping before, you're tipping on the assumption you're going to get good service when they're forcing it on you at Starbucks, and that's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's the problem we have with it.
That's exactly the problem.
The tip is supposed to be for good service. Why are you being forced to tip before you're able to judge what the service? So if it's giving you three options, 15, 20, 25, how am I supposed to, how do I know what I'm getting? How do I know what type of service am I getting?
Yeah.
And if you get your coffee and it's wrong and it took forever and you got bad service and they grunted at you, do you go back and say, hey, I'd like to take back that 25%?
Well, you can't. That's it. You can't take it back.
So for that reason, and I'm sure there's a couple other examples we can use, but I think that's probably the best example. That's where we're at on that.
That's where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about Sarasota. Really, all of Florida, we've been seeing a lot of shark sightings lately, which it's natural. I mean, what do you expect? They live in the ocean. We're going into their habitat. Recently, in Brazil, they found a little something different with the sharks. So they noticed something was a little off, and they decided they were going to do some testing, and they found high amounts of cocaine in the sharks.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, this is the first of its kind testing they've done on sharks. They've done it on other animals like mollusks and shrimp and things of that nature, and have found traces of cocaine. But this, they had really elevated levels of this. Not sure why they looked for that. They said that what they believe is that all this cocaine in their system was coming through urine and feces, because in that area there's not a lot of room for them to dispose of the wastewater, so sometimes it ends up in the ocean.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what you're saying is then the people that are going to the bathroom as a whole
Yep.
are mostly all doing cocaine.
It's Brazil. I don't know. Never been there.
I had no idea that's where you were going with this. Because I see a lot of stories where people find these square groupers.
Yeah.
And maybe they've come across a couple shipwrecks of these things, and all the sharks just start eating it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, they started.
Where did you see this story?
A few different places, actually.
No shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, AP was one. Yeah, they noticed these things were a little off, and what really started them to dive a little deeper is that there was one shark in particular that was kind of the alpha, and they noticed he was sweating profusely and rambling about how his father was the president. It was just
Okay, good one. You got me.
But no, that's a true story.
That's unbelievable. I will be reading into that later. My pet peeve of the week. There's a store here that I frequent often, a couple times a week, Seat the Table. You know I love it going in there.
Yeah.
And the place is unbelievable. It's clean. It's organized. The problem I have isn't so much with the store, but it's some of the people that are just so naive. You have an in where you go in, and you have a spot where you come out. And it's very obvious. Even if you've never been there before, it's obvious how you get in and out of the store.
Mm-hmm.
However, if there's a family of, let's say, what happened to me the other day, 9, and none of them were speaking, you could tell they were on vacation. They were from Europe. And they're walking in, and they're blown away by what they see the second they come in. Like everybody else is going to the Seat the Table for the first time. It's just so much to take. It's like going to Disney for the first time.
Yeah.
You're just rubbernecking and looking around. And so all of them come in and they kind of fan out, but they came in the exit. Now, I don't push a cart when I go in there because I want to get my shit, put it on there and go. So I grab all my bags in my hand, plus I got my coffee. Like I want to get moving. And they're all standing at the doorway just kind of like taking it all in. And they're looking at me like, what are you doing standing here? And I'm like,
get out of our picture.
You're going the wrong way. Yeah, get out of our picture. I said, you guys are coming in the outdoor. We don't speak English. I don't even necessarily know that you need to speak English to realize it. The cash register's right there. You see people coming out. I mean, you'd have to be an idiot to realize it's the wrong door. And I know there's signs on the outside of the door.
I was going to say, I think the red circle with the dash through it is pretty much universal. Do not enter.
But once this started happening, I noticed it at a few different spots. I went to a Publix, it happened. I'm at the Walgreens. I guess I've always just been trained to go in the one way and out the other. And when someone else starts taking advantage of that, it causes me grief when I'm using that. It's a trigger for me.
Publix is a big one for that.
Yeah.
You going in and then running down the register aisle just because it's closer instead of walking all the way around.
I've been guilty of it, so that's why I'm kind of laughing.
Of course.
But it's a pet peeve.
Well, I've got one.
All right.
And some of you fathers out there and husbands can appreciate this. I happen to have 2 girls in addition to my wife, so I've got 3 of them I have to deal with the fucking Stanley Cups.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I call them water buffaloes. They use them. They use them once a day. They don't ever reuse them. So use them once a day. Come in, still full of water or whatever the hell they had in there. Stick it in the sink. Don't rinse it out. Don't do anything with it. And the sink's filling up. And I'm like, you gonna put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah, and it's not
put
like
it in the
a
other
little
side of the
cup
sink.
either. It's a whole big to do.
No, but the way I perceive it is it's kind of like a fuck you. You clean it up.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I perceive it, and it just drives me up a wall. So
So wait, what are you doing to mitigate that?
Besides screaming and yelling,
Yeah, because obviously that's not working.
I think they've learned their lesson now. I only see it once in a while. But in the beginning, it was really bad with those stupid Stanleys. That as soon as that fad started, it was just constant.
What drove me nuts was after you washed them, there was nowhere convenient to put them because they were so much bigger they didn't fit on the traditional shelf.
Yeah.
So now you got to kind of like rearrange everything.
Well, and on top of that, cleaning the straws on these things.
Ooh.
Because,
Yeah.
like my oldest and my wife in particular, they're wearing lipstick and maybe, whatever the hell formula they have so it doesn't come off, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't come off the fucking straw.
Yeah, I know.
So that's kind of a little pet peeve of mine.
All right, Jess, Olivia, fucking clean the Stanleys for fuck's sakes.
I
All
think
right.
they've learned.
Well, I
they've
hope
learned.
so. I hope for your sake they have. Maybe it's time to get a butler's kitchen so you can have your own like sink area and everything where they're not allowed to go.
Just maybe.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Hard Hat Highlights. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. We've been getting a lot of traction with some of our shorts and reels, so we're really encouraged by that. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Hard Hat Highlights.